Hi, I'm Jonathan Ward.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Lane.
And I'm Sonia and Jonathan. Together, we're unlocking leadership. We're three experienced executive coaches with very different disciplines. In every episode, we take a question from a real client and provide key insights to address their challenge from our three different perspectives. It's a holistic approach to understand challenges and opportunities. So let's get to it. Our question today is from Darby in Philadelphia. My time horizon for changing roles has shortened, and I don't have a true successor for the role. There's a core group of three leaders who are strong and have worked together for the past 3 years. They would be a flight risk if we recruit a new leader. What are your thoughts about distributing the responsibilities for managing the office region to a team versus bringing in a new leader? Jonathan, what should Darby do about this choice?
It's a really fascinating choice, Darby, to be looking into. I mean, on one hand, it's really great that you recognize that you've got three strong leaders in the role. There are models for shared leadership where you have a group of people who will share things like that. I think I'm trying to think if I've seen situations where it's been a true sharing of equals that way. That I think there still needs to be one person who's going to be the lead of that group, and in terms of how you actually go about selecting who that person is, maybe it's a mutual choice. I don't know how well these three work together, if there's any competition between them, or if they're willing to share that openly. But you might think about, I don't know if it's been modeled anywhere else in your organization to see if something like that has worked before too. You might see how groups do that. But I do think it is possible to do that. But again, I think you have to have a pretty transparent process in terms of how they're going to work together and who's going to make decisions if the three of them are truly split on how things are going to happen. But I think is an opportunity to bring them into the conversation. You don't have to design this yourself. You can bring them into how this might work and get them to come up with a proposal for you about how they might function together as a leadership team. What do you think, Sonia or Kimberly?
I agree with
I
that. Jonathan, Kimberly, you go ahead.
yeah, I'm not aware of a scenario where this has been effective. Not saying that it can't. Um, I just feel like you typically at the end of the day you need a leader. So if you've got, say, three leaders here who are very strong, uh, who gets the designated power, if you will, and are the other two going to be upset about that, or is it somebody always vying for that power, or do you have actually two against one? All those wonderful dynamics that happen when people get stressed, financial pressure, power. I'm sure everybody's great and have worked together. I just think if you're leading an organization, you probably need one leader. Can they maybe three temporarily support the organization? Yes. I think it has to be a really clear conversation about who's taking on what and what roles. But I think ultimately you're going to need a leader. And is it possible to have those three leaders be responsible for picking the new leader since you don't have enough time doing it? So they're actually, so they're not the flight risk by actually having them part of the process, and they're the final selection. Somebody that they all three can respect and admire. If, however, there's one person that everybody agrees on of those three that would be most effective as the leader and the other two okay, I'm cool with it. I just think eventually there's going to be a fallout of one person in charge, and everybody has to be in agreement with that and how things are going to get run. That's kind of my initial take.
Yeah, I thank you. You guys both have really good thoughts on this. I agree with Jonathan. You have to understand what plays in the organization. So if the organization allows for, if you will, team leadership, then that's an option that you have in front of you. If the organization does look for somebody to be the one that's accountable and the one that holds a particular title, I think it would be important to understand what are the strengths of each one of the leaders. Where are there areas in which they really stand out? And do the other two also agree? Because there can be, if you will, more of okay, we'll have Joe be in charge of the office, but when it comes to, I'm going to say business development, we're going to have Charlie involved and he can take the lead on that. And this is how we will work together with them. Because I think that if you don't understand what is it that each person brings to the table, I think that when you think in the final analysis of somebody running an office or running a team or running a group, you have to really think about who can develop talent the best, because people are going to want to stay with somebody that they trust enough that's going to have their career and their growth at top of mind and will be able to make a big difference of that. When you think about, they've done a lot of studies about why do people stay and why do people go. And one of the things that I find is that they'll work for a leader that, challenges them. They'll work for a leader that gives them some great opportunities for development over somebody that is just not interested, but just a good caretaker kind of thing. So those are my first thoughts when it comes to that.
Go ahead, Kimberly.
So, because I come from different perspective at this, if we're talking about three leaders who are vying for a CEO or trying to serve as a CEO of an organization, I have a different response. And if it's three leaders who are, like in charge of a division or something like that, right? Or just are building their own consulting firm. I mean, it's a different response, right? So just because of the level of accountability that's related to that. So I was just wondering, from your perspective, how were you answering?
Well, because he said that it was managing the office or region in their organization. So it wasn't the top job, but it was, it sounds like it's obviously a job that requires, a certain amount of seniority and a certain amount of,
So there's somebody actually at the highest level than an individual. So you're talking about three people who are strong. So I think that's very possible to divvy up the work if it's not necessarily being in charge of an organization and being the one-stop person as a CEO, if you will. If it's somewhere else, I think it's totally manageable, and it's really defining what's everybody good at. And also who's managing the people part of it, and very good at the people part of it, as you mentioned, Sonia.
I've seen this work in teams, where maybe they would say that, okay, Sally's going to be in charge for January through April, and then Megan's going to take over from May through September, and so it's an opportunity for people to have a little bit of continuity in there. I mean, you don't want to necessarily shift the roles around every month, but give people a few months to try to lead some things together. It maybe is an opportunity for them to develop. But I think as it moves higher up in the organization, it does get tougher and tougher. And I think Kimberly, to go on to your part about who's people naturally find somebody that they feel comfortable with looking out for their development and things like that. That I think you run the risk of factionalization happening here too, where you have people who will take a problem to one person and not to another, and then you start ending up with
messy.
It gets very, very messy. Yeah.
What you don't want is three separate silos happening that eventually get created within an organization because of politics, personalities, styles. Yeah.
Well, and in an ideal world, if you were going to go that route and potentially rotate it, you would have rules of engagement that they will all have to adhere to about how it is that we're going to be running this whenever that in fact occurs. But I guess what I'll say, the good news is he's got a good problem, that he's got a lot of talented people. So he's got some skill sets that he has clearly, probably developed in some of them. It's just a question of, and potentially, again, having a meeting with all of them, if they can identify like what are their concerns and how would they contribute to a unified vision, there might be a negotiating session that turns out with everybody, disagree but commit, or come together and put the organization in front or the vision in front. Something to think about. There's only one other thought I had about this, and that was, I don't know what the nature of your business is, and I don't know how you're looking at the next couple of years, but if you know that you're going into a particular kind of business climate or particular kinds of challenges, it's like, who would be the one best prepared for that? Because they're going to have to navigate those rapids. And that potentially could create a unifying whole for them, because we were able to make sure that we had the person who had the best skills for that, or the one that had the best opportunities for that. Something to think about.
Great. Any other comments, Jonathan?
No, I'm good.
Thank you, Darby, for your question today. Hopefully we shared with you and our listeners and viewers how to manage possible leadership, dividing it between three people, or understanding just the importance of accountability to one person. To our listeners, if you like the content we shared today, please like this episode and also share and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Unlocking Leadership AskTheCoaches.com. We look forward to reading your reviews. You can also find Unlocking Leadership Ask the Coaches on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. If you have a leadership question and would like to reach out to one of our coaches, please email us at info@unlockingleadership-askthecoaches.com. We'd really love to hear from you. Thanks so much for joining us today. Tune in next time to find the keys to unlocking your best leadership.